Hello everyone and welcome to Nervous Nessie. Today I want to talk about which seats are the best seats on the plane for you. Now, of course, every person is different and we're going to break down the seats. That way you can make an educated decision on which seat will be the best one for you. So let's get into it. Now, there are three different types of seats on the plane. You have the window, the middle, and the aisle. And there's pros and cons to each one of these seats, and we're going to go through each one. The first is the window seat. Now, there are some pros to the window seat, and a lot of people really love the window seat. Some of those pros include you get to see out the window, you get a wall to lean against, that way if you want to sleep, there's less interruptions by other people because people are not coming toward the window, people are going away from the window. And the fourth one is that you have less exposure to everyone around you. Think of how much further away from the aisle you are of people passing by versus you are in the aisle right next to everybody passing by. But there's also some cons to having the window seat. Oftentimes, the window seat is colder. There's limited mobility, meaning you're kind of stuck there and you either have to crawl over to get out or you have to make everyone else get up in order for you to get out of your seat. And the third con is that it is going to be a slower departure to depart from the plane. You have to wait on everyone else to get out of the aisle before you get out of the aisle. Next, we have the aisle seat, and there's pros and cons to that seat too. One pro is that you can stretch your legs. Now, of course, people are passing by and the cart will come by at some point too, but in between, you can stretch your legs and even your arms if you really need to. You can also get up quicker because there's no one to crawl over. You're it. So you can get up quicker. Same thing goes for the departure. You have a quicker departure. You're not waiting on everyone else to get out of the aisle. And if you're someone who works while flying, then the aisle seat is perfect for you because you have room to move around in the aisle seat. This includes getting an aisle seat where your dominant hand is on the side of the aisle. So if you're right-handed, you want to sit on the left side of the plane so that the aisle, you can move your right arm a lot easier. But there's also cons to sitting in the aisle. Just like having the ability to stretch your legs, you have that ability, but the con is when you have your legs and arm in the aisle and the cart comes through, the steward or stewardess is going to ask you to move. And if you keep doing it over and over, that's not going to make them happy. And if you get hit by one of those carts, I am here to tell you, it will leave a bruise. It hurts really bad. You're also exposed to more people passing by and you have a higher risk of getting sick if you have an aisle seat. Another con is that every time someone in your row needs to get up and go to the restroom, you're gonna have to get up too. And you have no wall support. You don't have anything to lean against if you want to sleep. And last but not least is the middle seat. Now, some people prefer the middle seat, but most people don't. And the reason why is because you get a lot more cons than you do pros. So the one major pro that you get from the middle seat is that you get both of the armrests. But you might encounter someone who will argue this with you. You will be in the right, but hopefully you'll get both of your armrests. The cons are you don't have the wall to lean against, and you have limited space and mobility. You're gonna have to crawl over someone to get out, and you're going to be cramped. You may be wondering, should I sit on the right side of the plane or the left side of the plane? And it really depends on what you're going to be doing during the flight. If you are going to be taking this flight and you're going to be sleeping a lot, then sit on the side of the plane that you usually sleep on. So if when you sleep on your right side, then you want to get a seat on the right side of the plane and get the window seat. That way you naturally turn to your right side and sleep up against the wall. But if you're going to use this flight for work, like I mentioned before, you'll want to get an aisle seat and you want to have it open on the side of your dominant hand. And if you have no preference, or if you're going to be doing several things during your flight, such as working and sleeping, then it's always best to pick the right side of the plane because the right side fills up less than the left. You may also be wondering, should I book at the front of the plane or at the back of the plane? And there's pros and cons to both. For the front of the plane, you'll get to board and depart faster than everyone else. However, you have a lot more exposure because everyone has to pass you to get to their seats. Now, the front of the plane is usually busier during the boarding and the departing of the plane. But during the flight, the front of the plane is often quieter. So if you want to sleep on the plane, then it might be better for you to get a seat near the front of the plane. Also, by getting a seat at the front of the plane, you're going to have more overhead bin space. If you end up getting one at the back, you may not have an overhead bin spot. The flip side to all of this is the back of the plane. And that means that you are going to be boarding last and departing last. The back of the plane is also a lot noisier, and since the food and drink carts start at the front of the plane, which is a pro for the front of the plane, it's a con if you're at the back of the plane, because it could mean that they run out of the food that you want by the time they get to you. The back of the plane also has a lot more turbulence. However, studies show that if you sit at the back of the plane, you have a better chance of surviving a crash should one happen. So if you have a fear of flying and you're worried about a plane crash, then sitting at the back plane may make you a lot more calm about your flight. By sitting at the back of the plane, you will have to pass everyone on the plane, which means that you're going to be exposed to a lot more. But it kind of balances itself out because if you sat at the front of the plane, everyone passes you, so it's almost a moot point. But it's really what you prefer as far as your exposure to other people. And of course, you could always wear a mask no matter where you sit on the plane. Another con to sitting at the back of the plane, and we're talking the very back of the plane, is that's where the restrooms are. And so along with that, you're going to have people standing in the aisle waiting to get into the restroom, which is really awkward, having someone stand right next to you and hover over you. Maybe they're watching your TV show while they're waiting to go into the restroom, or maybe they're watching what you're working on while they're waiting to go into the restroom. And also, restrooms smell. And after a long flight, if you're someone who is very sensitive to smells, you might not want to sit at the back of the plane. There are 2 seats on the plane that you want to avoid if at all possible. And that is the very back row of the plane, the absolute very back row. The reason why is because those seats do not recline. Also, again, you're right next to the restroom, and they could run out of food and drinks by the time they get to you. The second one that you want to avoid, if at all possible, is the row in front of the exit row. The reason why is because those seats do not recline to block the exit row. So if you're someone who wants to be able to recline during your flight, don't get into the row that is in front of the exit row. And there are two seats that you may or may not want to sit in, but I wanted to bring them up. That way you are aware of these special seats. The first one is the exit row. When you sit in the exit row, usually you may have to pay a little more to sit there because you actually get a lot more leg room. However, the flip side to that is you no longer have storage space underneath the seat. The exit row must remain clear, and so you can't store your items under the seat in front of you. The exit row is also the coldest row on the plane because it is right next to the exit door. So if you are someone who is sensitive to being in cold parts of the plane, then avoid the exit row. Also, when you sit in the exit row, the steward or stewardess will come around and ask you, are you willing to open the door in case of an emergency? Some people are okay with it, but if you're someone who is not okay with that responsibility, then you will need to let them know and you will have to change seats. The other special seats on the plane are the bulkhead seats. And what that is when you enter the plane, there is a wall there separating you from the steward and stewardess area of the plane. If you get a seat in this area, you will get more leg room. However, again, you will not be able to store anything under the seat in front of you because there is no seat in front of you. Another thing with the bulkhead row is that the trays on this row are kind of flimsy. If, let's say, you need to work on the flight, then you would want to avoid these rows because either the tray drops down from the wall itself or it pops up from your armrest, and if you're putting a laptop on that actual tray, it's just not a good idea. So you might want to avoid the bulkhead row. And if you happen to be on a bigger flight, like an international flight, that has the row of seats in the center and then you have the seats on the outside, then maybe the best seat for you is to get an aisle seat in that center row. The reason why is because compared to an aisle seat on the outside, you must get up in order to let the people out. But if you're in the aisle seat in the center rows, then you may or may not, because that center person can go either way to get out of the seat. Now, you may have been expecting me to pick a particular seat and tell you this is the most perfect seat, but I can't. It depends on what is important to you. Whether it is exposure or being comfortable on the plane with smells or the temperature or the noise level, or being able to sleep or work on the plane. It all depends on what is important to you. But I hope this video shared with you the different aspects of these seats. That way you can make an informed decision when booking your next flight. If you have a seat preference, then I would love to hear what it is and leave a comment below. If you like this video, then give me a thumbs up. And if you'd like to know when the next video in this flight series comes out, then subscribe. But until then, bye!